Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining me tonight on another edition of Spanning the Need. I am your host, Anthony Spano. Tonight, we're going to talk about life, news, and everything else. Tonight, I have Chelsea Spears from WKBN's morning show and noon anchor. Chelsea, thank you for joining me tonight.
I am so excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Hey, anytime. I appreciate you stopping by. I know you have a busy schedule and with everything going on, the pandemic and what you guys do at the news station. So I know you've been around for about 2 or 3 years. Um,
Mhm.
Talk about, if people don't know who you are, they may or may not do, talk about kind of how you started your career and how you kind of got to KBN and kind of where you are now.
Right. So I started doing video and the morning news in elementary school in fourth grade. So really always just grew up kind of with this video background, but fell in love with journalism when I was a senior in high school when I read All the President's Men. Really got into it then. And when I went to college, I was trying to do something practical and study speech and hearing science to become a speech pathologist, but I really missed journalism. So got involved with the Lantern, which was our student newspaper, ended up switching my major just so that I could keep doing what I loved. And I have not regretted it since. Studied journalism at Ohio State, got a 4-year degree from there, my bachelor's. And while I was working at going to Ohio State, I started working part-time at the local news station. Worked there as what's called an assignment editor. A lot of people who watch the news don't even know what that is, but every newsroom across the country has an assignment editor. You know. But assignment editors, they are kind of almost like, how do you explain it? The pilot, or what's that job called at the airport where you're up in the tower? You know what I'm talking about?
Traffic controller.
Traffic controller, yeah. You're kind of talking to your crews out in the field, talking to your crews in-house in the newsroom, kind of managing everything. So I did that, worked part-time at the station while going to school full-time. And then when I graduated, got my first on-air job as a reporter in Charleston, West Virginia. I ended up becoming the morning reporter there. And towards the end of my time, I started filling and anchoring. So I was there from May of 2015. I'm dating myself here. That's when I graduated college.
Oh, wow.
I know, I'm a baby still.
You're dating me. You're dating me on that from 2015.
Yeah, so I graduated May 2015, started a week later as a reporter in Charleston, West Virginia, and was there through October of 2017. At that time, I wasn't sure what I was going to be doing afterwards. I knew I didn't necessarily want to stay in Charleston. And my current boss found me. I uploaded my reel to YouTube, which is what we do. It's kind of like, instead of a resume, you just have a reel, which is like the clips of your best work that you've done in your time as a reporter where you were just at. Uploaded it to YouTube. My current boss, saw me on YouTube, realized I worked at his sister station. So called me up and said, I have an opportunity for a morning anchor in Youngstown, Ohio. Have you ever heard of it? I was like, yes, I have. I'm from Columbus, Ohio. So he invited me to come on down. I instantly fell in love with Youngstown when I came to visit. I guess I just didn't have high expectations. The naive part of me, the uninformed part of me, didn't have high expectations, and I was so pleasantly surprised by the area and fell in love with it. And so after that day, I knew I wanted to come here. And so I transferred to our sister station in Youngstown in October of 2017. And here I am today, 3 years later.
And it's funny because you talk about how you had really no expectations, but then you fell in love with Youngstown.
Mm-hmm.
It's like the notion that you may leave Youngstown, but Youngstown will never leave inside you.
I know, right?
But you came in, and it still hasn't left you.
I know. And actually, we are very excited that we haven't announced this yet, but I'll do it here. I'll make our big announcement. We just bought a house in the valley.
Hey, congratulations. Is that where you are now, or?
Well, right now I'm in an apartment and it is very messy. Let me tell you what. I've tried to finagle myself so you don't see all the moving boxes. Like, this apartment is so bare right now. So
Well, congratulations, and we won't say the house is in the Mahoning Valley, and that's great to hear. That shows that you have a real route to stay here and really do good.
I've just loved it. I mean, I love the food here. That's hard to beat, first of all. But the people here have just made me feel so welcome. You know, I'm not used to the Italian welcome. That's almost how I would describe it. You know, the kisses on the cheeks before the pandemic, and you get that here. I actually have. I was a little bit
From the old timers. From the old
yeah, I
timers.
was really shocked the first time it happened. Like, Chelsea, good to meet you. It was funny, but I know I just love it here. So
Well,
as everyone,
and that's nice that you're going to be here for a long time, as long as everyone will have you.
yeah, hopefully for much longer.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, you're here as long as you want, and you're always welcome on here. So let's
Right.
talk a little bit about the morning show, WKBN. Talk a little
Mhm.
bit about what you've done, and kind of what you've looked for during the span of your morning show work.
In terms of what I do each day, or
Yeah, tell people kind of what may happen. They see you on TV. They don't know what happened behind the scenes, how you prepare, what time you
Mhm.
get up in the morning.
let me tell you what, I've gotten lazy. Lazy. I should wake up earlier than I do and shower. That's what I did before this, blow dried my hair. I look way more presentable now than I do ever on air because I just can't get myself to wake up any earlier. So I just shower at night, wake up. I usually go to bed with my hair wet, wake up. It's crazy. Gotta tame it. But that is literally the least of my problems or concerns, I guess, in the morning. So yeah, I wake up early in the morning, 3 a.m. or earlier. Get ready. I know. Get ready at my apartment, and then go into work and hit the ground running. Right now, with social distancing, things are a little different. Those of you who watch regularly know I am only anchoring 2 out of the 4 hours right now on our newscast. But regardless of what time I start, I come in and start reading through scripts. Our producers have been working overnight to find those stories, to write those stories, research those stories. I come in, they're already written, but I come in and ask my own questions. If I'm confused on a story, I know my viewers are going to be confused too. Ask those questions, make those clarifications, and then actually rewrite things to say them how I would be explaining it to you right now. You know, a lot of times we're getting stories from people who are really good at their job, police officers, politicians, that sort of thing. And they have their own way of speaking that doesn't necessarily make sense to you or I. So it's kind of digging through that language and figuring out the easiest way to convey that to our viewers. You know, that's the big difference between print journalism and broadcast journalism is when you're watching on the news on the TV, you only have the chance to hear something once. You don't get to go back and re-listen to it. So we try to make things as clear and concise as possible. So come in, do my research, read through my stories, make my changes, and then it's go time. I'm live for right now 2 hours out of our 4 hours, and come back down, and I basically help co-produce the noon. So help our noon producer find stories, write stories. And I do that in between the morning newscast and the noon newscast. I'm not just sitting there doing my makeup and twiddling my thumbs. Sometimes I go out and grab a cup of coffee if I have enough time. Sometimes.
Coffee gets you started in the morning, like everyone else.
What I found, it's weird. I prefer cream and sugar, but I have to drink it black or else it just affects my voice too much if I have cream and sugar in it. So my first cup's always black in the morning, and then after the newscast is over, I go treat myself to something with cream and sugar because it's way better that way.
Usually, if I put cream and sugar in the years past, I'd be bouncing off walls.
Then I crash though, not long after it's that sugar high.
It pretty much. Let's talk about what you just talked about with social distancing. Has the
Mhm.
pandemic changed the way you guys deliver news?
Oh, absolutely. Right now, for example, you don't see it on air, but our producers are on a rotating shift. So we have a team of producers on the morning show. One week, one of them's in the newsroom. The next week, they're at home, and they flip-flop. So communication's harder, honestly, but it's worth it, taking those extra steps and that extra time to try to communicate with each other, because it means people are staying more safe. The other thing is, Stan was very open about it. Stan Boney, he tested positive for the virus, so he had to work from home for his quarantine and his self-isolation. So, he was doing live shots from home. He was, turning stories from home. And by turning stories, I mean, interviewing people from home and editing those stories to make it to airtime and make deadlines. So things have changed very much. There's plexiglass up in the newsroom. Just starting 2 weeks ago, we're alternating hours. So it's just a single anchor newscast in the morning and at night. So things are different, and we're still trying to figure it out. We started when this pandemic hit in March. Dan, my co-anchor at the time, was, co-anchoring from home. So we were doing something like what we're doing right now, where you'd see us on 2 screens. But I was in studio and he was at home. Now we're just flip-flopping hours, just trial and error, really, trying to figure out what works best.
Yeah, you had actually, I think, a couple different morning casts. It was you, Dan Martin, and a cat.
Yes, dude.
That got whirled around.
Oh my goodness. I can't remember if I shared this or not. I think so. Those of you who didn't know, dude took a bath right in the middle, live on air, and just wasn't cleaning a great part of himself. Well, he started to do it again a few weeks down the line, and it was on Dan. And so they just cut back to me real quick. And I said, oh, okay, let's switch gears now. We're like, dude, you can't do that again, bud. Not okay.
And it's funny because Dan didn't even know it until he saw pictures and everything like that. It's just, it's live television. I know when we were talking before this, your dog was trying to get in the picture, and yeah,
you probably see the fake plant rustling. That's because my puppy's trying to eat it.
Yeah,
Bodie, come. Oh, he came. He listened.
There you go. He listened. He wants to know what's going on. Look at the.
Wait, let's see. Say hi, Bodie.
There's everyone can say hi to the nice, cute little doggy. And what kind of dog is that?
He's an Aussie Doodle. He is part Australian Shepherd, part Poodle.
Hypoallergenic dog.
Yeah, I have allergies, so we were really struggling to find one that was hypoallergenic. But
there you go.
We got him.
So you've been doing the news for 5-7 years in a different capacities.
Yeah.
How has the news changed with the 24-hour news cycle? Do you always gotta be at the forefront? How do you deal with just in general news changing all the time?
What's really great about WKBN is we have a team of really experienced people, both on air and behind the scenes. You have Dave Sess and Stan Boney, who have been here for years and decades, Jerry Ricciuti, but you also have producers behind the scenes who have been doing this for a long time too. Mm-hmm. So for example, just today, normally we do 5 to 9 a.m. and then I do 12 to 12:30 p.m. That's when I'm live on air during my shift. Today, we had Mahoning, Trumbull, and Columbiana County health commissioners coming together live for a virtual press conference. And we just learned about it this morning. So they were like, okay, that starts at 11. Chelsea, go on up to the newsroom. We're going to have you stand by to anchor that. We're not sure exactly what's going to happen. We have an idea, but just get ready. So you know what, though? Things get thrown our way, but we have a team of people who are working together to make it look as clean as possible. And I think we do a pretty good job of it. But just knowing you can rely on your team, that when things start hitting the fan, they have your back and you have theirs. And yeah, it can be crazy and busy and exhausting, but at the end of the day, you can always take a nap after your shift's over.
Well, like you said, you're probably you're up at 3 a.m. and you're getting there probably by 4:30, give or take, for the live 5.
Yep.
And
That's pretty much gone.
now, and I know, so we've been hailing the pandemic since March. Has anything of the pandemic affected anyone or anything?
You mean
Just in
personally?
general? Yeah, personally.
Well, so Stan got it at work and he's been self-isolating. The pandemic, I mean, really just hard on so many of us. I mean, I've been very open about my mental health struggles and I've been dealing with depression. I was diagnosed, what was that? 2013. I was diagnosed when I was in college and it's tough. I mean, I think I just keep finding myself in different stages of that mental health struggle. I was thinking about it this week and I'm not sad this week, but I'm just tired and I don't have energy and all I want to do is sleep. All I want to do is eat. And I can tell because I'm lethargic, and that's just one way that keeps manifesting itself throughout this pandemic. I know a lot of people struggling with that, especially when you have to self-isolate. Thankfully, knock on wood, I haven't gotten to the point where I've needed to quarantine or self-isolate. So I still have this limited interaction with people at work behind plexiglass and masks. But it is hard. I mean, I was talking to one of my girlfriends the other day and she was like, don't be too hard on yourself. We've come to think how things are happening right now is normal, but it's not. This is still not normal, no matter how used to it we are. It's just our way of life right now.
Well, and that's that you have the courage to say that and openly acknowledge that. What advice would you give someone that feels how you feel? Uh, that advice that you can give them that can really help them.
I think the biggest thing that's helped me over the years is I wrote down a list of positive, healthy things that get me to a better spot when I'm in a low spot. Listening to happy music, going for a walk, driving with the windows down when the weather is nice, talking to a friend. Those things really help me. Unfortunately, when you're in the throes of depression and in those dark spots, it's the last thing you want to do, and you don't feel like you have the energy to possibly do it sometimes. So sharing that list with someone else who you love and trust, who will really encourage you to do those things and sometimes even do them with you when you don't feel like doing them yourselves, really helped me a lot. Now I've gotten to the point where the things on my list have changed, they've evolved. I don't have them written down anymore. I just know them up in my head. But for me, one of the biggest things has been working out. So trying to figure out a way to just do that healthfully, and especially now in the middle of a pandemic.
Yeah, I think it's hard right now because I think I want to use the correct word, that everyone is COVID exhausted or COVID. I'm
Fatigue,
trying to
yeah.
find the fatigued, and I think that's. I mean, the mental health of just the society right now is big,
Mhm.
and I appreciate you sharing that with everyone and kind of the advice on how to help people.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've always been open about it. I don't think it's something to be ashamed about if you're struggling with it at home. It's something so many of us deal with, unfortunately, and I wish it wasn't that way, but it's not something to be ashamed about. And I think talking about it rather than isolating yourself emotionally and not reaching out to someone's the worst thing you can do. So I think if it encourages anybody else to open up, and if it helps just one person, it's worth it.
Well, and I think you're in a great position to be a kind of an inspiration for people, especially what position you're in now. And I think you do a great job about it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
And that kind of goes back to what you do. And is there any stories that you've done in the past that have really hit home, that you've done, kind of gone out, and maybe in the last 3 or 4 years, maybe not in the last 6 months, but like any stories that you've done that really hit home? Doesn't It could be for that, it could just be for something in general, personal or professional.
Gosh, I think one of the ones that's still stuck with me to this day, people who know me know I'm very emotional. I cry a lot, whether it's happy or sad or just a good memory. I could just cry a lot. When I was in West Virginia, was it 2016? I think it was 2016. We had terrible flooding. Terrible. I mean, 23 people died statewide. and we've been covering it for weeks. And I remember I went out to one of these stories in Clendenin, and I was talking to an elderly woman who'd been trapped on the second story of her house for days with her neighbors, just waiting for help
Ooh.
food. She didn't have access to her medicine that she needed. And I was there in the town as she was taking all her waterlogged items out of the house and trying to get her belongings. And it was just listening to her story was so sad. I mean, it was heartbreaking. And I went live probably within a minute of talking to her. Normally you get ready about 10 minutes before, but I was just so engrossed with her story. I just kept listening to it, went live, and just was so shaken by it that I just started crying live on air. And to this day, that story still hits home. I still wonder how she's doing, if she moved back into that house, if she ever got her things back that meant so much to her memories. And I just think a lot about that still to this day.
Yeah, I watched a story. The Greenbriers in West Virginia, or just
Mhm.
outside down there, and they talked about when those floods came, it pretty much wiped half of Greenbrier area
The golf
out.
courses were
The golf
terrible. Yeah.
course, yeah, and they talked about how the Greenbrier opened up to the community. So that
Mhm.
was, and I think that's where no matter if it's Greenbrier or even Youngstown, Ohio, or anywhere, that if something happens, the community comes together no matter what.
Oh yeah, and we've seen that so much. I mean, in Youngstown, I mean, another one that sticks with me is when we had those 5 children in Youngstown die in a fire in December. Was that last December?
The pandemics kind of made everything run together.
No, it was December because it was right before Christmas. I just don't remember if it was last year or the year before. Um, but I mean, that one, you just saw the whole community rally together and set up memorials for those children, and it was just touching. I mean, people really have each other's backs here in the valley, which is one reason I love it so much.
And that's good to hear. And we talk about kind of those stories that you've done, and what kind of makes what you do special,
Hmm.
that you feel that you do that is special about that.
On a daily basis, what I
Yeah.
find special is that I can help people wake up in the morning. I get you prepared, ready to go with information you need to start your day. Sometimes that can be potentially life-saving, especially when there's snow in the morning, bad weather in the morning. But I just really find it a privilege that people turn us on in the morning, welcome us into their homes, and choose us to get their day started. I take that as a big responsibility and something I don't take lightly. You know, how you start your morning sets the tone for the rest of your day. So to me, that's very special. But also just the fact that we have the chance to bring stories to light in our community and possibly inspire change. That's something I'm always looking for. So if you guys ever have stories that are troubling you, issues you want changed, if you're watching right now, reach out to me. If I can't do the story, I'll try to get you in touch with someone who can. But just the fact that, we can be your voice if you feel like you are voiceless right now in the community and there's a problem in your neighborhood, or we can bring that to light and hopefully help inspire change. That was my goal. I did a story a few years back on Glenwood Avenue being dark in Youngstown, especially around one bar and a halfway house. And it was just dangerous. I mean, people were getting hit pretty, I don't want to say consistently, but more often than it should be happening. Not that it should be happening at all, but one's too many, but there were several in this area. And after I did that story, the mayor started looking into lighting districts and lighting up that area of town. So being able to do that is special to me because I want to stay here for a long time, and that's my plan. But even if, God forbid something happens and I'm not, that doesn't leave the change that you inspire in your community.
And actually, it's one person commented, and I'll bring it up on the screen. I like the fact you talk to us, Chelsea, instead of talking down to us. You give the news and you let us form our own opinion, and they thank you for it.
Oh, thanks, Phil. That was really sweet. I really do
So,
try.
well, and if anyone else wants to make a comment or a question to Chelsea, we'll be happy to accept it. Please be respectful on everything when you ask questions. That's all we ask. And we'll make sure that we can get Chelsea to answer them at the conclusion of this podcast. And Chelsea, we talk about those. Oh, someone's phone's ringing, and it's probably mine. No, it's not.
It's
But
not
who
mine.
cares? I think I got my mother calling me. You never know.
That's
So
fine.
we talk about different things about your stories and
Mhm.
how you deliver those stories. What can you kind of tell us about how you did that off of like a role model? Who would kind of be your role model that you would see, kind of look up to over the years?
In the journalism world, it's always been Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein from their time at the Washington Post. I talked at the beginning, if you missed it, about all the President's Men, reading that book in high school and really inspiring me to get into journalism. They are the journalists who broke Watergate, and just reading the process of how they researched and really dug into things and the domino effect it had on America as we know it, really just inspired me to continue digging. I think sometimes we all get into slumps, right, with our work and wanting to. Oh, you there, Anthony? Oh no, did we lose Anthony?
No, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can, but you're frozen.
Yeah. Oh, I know. Don't worry. It'll
Okay,
come
all
back.
right. I think, a lot of times all of us just get into slumps with our work, right? I mean, just get into your daily routines, and just reminding myself of why I got into journalism was to inspire change and to dig for the story and to do investigative journalism on issues that matter. That really pushes me to not become lax in anything I'm doing and just keep that focus in mind of, hey, would Bob Woodward or Carl Bernstein have taken this lightly? No. Even if it doesn't seem like an important story, it is.
Well, and I think, yeah, and you can, and it's funny because I'm froze, but I'm still going to go with the talking, if you can tell.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Yeah, well, let's talk a little bit about, like, what is probably a story that you didn't get, but one kind of fell into your lap.
Let me think. When I'm reporting, anchoring, both.
Just in general.
I don't think I can think of one right now. I mean, every day we kind of deal with those. I mean, people calling to the newsroom and say, hey, we have this story going on. I mean, the biggest one that I didn't see coming that day, I should say, was General Motors deciding they were going to close the Lordstown plant. I mean, that one was huge. I was the only anchor in the newsroom that day, and we found out they were likely going to be shutting down the Lordstown plant. And so I went straight up to the studio and started anchoring live, and was just being fed new information, new statistics throughout that time I was live on air. And my boss just told me, just go live until we tell you to stop. It was a huge story that just unfolded at that moment.
Well, and I think that's one of those where you look at different stuff, and it's one of those things that it just happens, and it makes a ripple effect in our community. And you were new. You're probably within maybe a year or two into being here. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, when that happened. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. How did you feel when something like that just kind of picked up and left?
It immediately taught me a lot about the Valley. I mean, I'd been here long enough to know how much of a hold GM had here.
Mm-hmm.
But honestly, watching the Valley go through learning that hard news and getting that gut punch to the stomach, and then months later it actually happening, it really taught me how resilient this area is and how much grit we have, and just how people are always ready to pick up the pieces and keep pushing and keep fighting. Yeah, these circumstances might be terrible, to say the least, but we're going to keep on going.
Yeah, and that's good. And It's funny because usually there's two or three people in the newsroom, or I should say, kind of behind the scenes. Any good stories that you could kind of tell us about behind the scenes, about what really happens behind the scenes of KBN, that other than maybe Nerf guns that I've heard stories about? I don't know if that's true or not.
That might have been before my time. No, that was
I don't
probably,
know. You tell.
well, now I feel like our interactions are so limited, but we have a good time. I mean, before the pandemic, we had a chip party. Everybody brought in their favorite chips and we just dug into it. One time, so we're up at the crack of dawn. My producer was like, let's have a breakfast party. And so we all like brought in like egg casseroles and fruit dips, and we were chowing down at like 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning. But
That's when people are getting out of bars.
yeah, which is actually something else you got to think about. So my dad's a police officer, and he's like, Chelsea, you really need to be careful going into work that early on a Friday morning. There's probably drunk drivers around. I'm like, Dad, okay, thanks.
Youngstown, Ohio. No one's out at 3 or 4 in the morning.
No.
It's funny. It's funny. And we talk about kind of what kind of you do behind the scenes, and how you work, and you really kind of got to get along, and you do. You really enjoy your partners working with, and you really kind of talk about those friendships that you've made. How does that kind of work well with you being on TV all the time, kind of being a role model for specific people or in general?
I mean, you got to have those good relationships with your coworkers. I think that shows on air when you have a good teamwork. For example, my noon producer, Lori, love her so much. We just work really well together. She has like one type of brain. I have a different type of brain. And just together, we're like, hey, what if we did this? No, what if we did that? Oh, I like your idea. Here's my idea. And just being able to respectfully disagree and explain our positions in a time where we don't see that very often is really encouraging. Even when it's something as simple as the work we're doing for on air, or as complicated as the work we're doing on air, we're able to come, hash out what we would like to see, our different points of view on the work that should be done, and just being able to work together. And I love being able to do that for the noon.
Well, and you seem, and it's one of those that you love what you do because of, like you said earlier, informing the people and telling them kind of how you approach things and everything. What is kind of one of your things that you really want to tell people about yourself, about how you come across in the newsroom, or what you want people to know about you?
Gosh, I do not have it all together, y'all. I think people watch us and think our lives are, this perfect model of what life should be like. I think that is a trap we fall into on social media, of just posting highlights of where we're at. But even when we come on TV, we're normally polished in what we're saying and what we're doing. That's not how real life is sometimes. I don't have it all together. I'm still figuring out this life during a pandemic, like all of you. And it is not easy, but you are not alone. That is for sure. We are sharing in your frustrations, your celebrations, your sadness. It's not always easy, but we get through it together.
Well, and I think right now that's a good message to send because of where we are today. I think that we look at things from a different angle, and I think that gives people hope. And I appreciate the inspiration that you're doing as well. And it's funny, we look at kind of some things that you enjoy doing, being on TV and working out. What are some other things that you want to do down the road? What are some of, like, it could be work, personal, like what's kind of something you're looking forward to down the road? It could be 6 months, a year, a couple of years, kind of hopefully when we get out of the pandemic.
Fingers crossed, right? Well, one of the biggest things that my young professional bucket list was to buy a house, which we are in the process of doing. So we're going to be closing on the house in a few weeks, moving, getting all that settled. That's been one thing I've been really wanting to do. Gosh, in the next year or so. For so long, that was what I was working towards. I mean, my friends who know me, I was a little bit of a freakazoid with saving money. I was like, save, save, save. And that's why, because I wanted to be able to buy this house and put as much money down as I could. So now that I've done that, I'm like, oh man, what is next? We got a dog. We got a house.
Sorry, they're hard-hitting questions.
No, I love it. I'm like, I gotta reevaluate my life here. What's my 5-year plan? I don't know.
Well, I don't think it's really a 5-year plan. I think it's more of what, like me, there's a bunch of things. I want to go back to, well, I'd like to go back to Disney and go on the rides.
Mhm.
My wife wants to enjoy the whole park,
I
which
would,
there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm in my late 20s right now. This is my time to be traveling. I don't have children yet. I would really like to be traveling the world more. I have a little like board up here in my hallway that you scratch off all the places you've been to. And I just look at it. I'm like, there's still so much of this world I want to go see. I'd love to go
And
to
what, and like where?
Machu Picchu in Peru. Oh, I would love to go there. But that'd be a far trip. But there's lots of places in the States I'd like to go as well.
For me, I want to go back to Italy.
Oh, I've
It's an
never
Italian
been.
thing.
I would love to go there. Would love to go.
Well, we can go. No one's going anywhere for
No.
a while.
Mm-mm.
And we talk kind of about where we're going. Like, what do you see professionally down the road? Do you see you continuing your career, staying in TV forever? Because some people aren't like
Yeah.
you. Got the Stan Bonies that have been there 40 years. You have a lot of guys that have been there, but then some people don't go out.
That is my plan for now, is to stay in this as long as I'm happy. That's been my biggest thing. As long as I have a good work-life balance and I'm happy, staying in this job and in this position, it brings me joy. It's something I love. I wake up at the crack of dawn before even the birds are up, but I enjoy it. I don't dread that alarm clock going off because I know at the end of the day, I enjoy what I do. And I know that what I do has an impact. So for me, as long as that's still the case, I will still be in this job and doing that. I know life circumstances change, who knows down the line if we start a family, what life will look like then, but I don't see that changing what I do anytime soon.
Well, and that's good because you do what you love. That's kind of the notion is, would you rather get paid $1 million for a job that you hate or $50,000 for a job that you love? I'm not saying that that's how much someone would make, but I would surely think about the $1 million just for 2 months, just to cover that 50 for a.
Right. And you know what? Someone else told me this, and it has always stuck with me. No matter how much money you make, most Americans are still living paycheck to paycheck. They just buy bigger cars, they buy bigger homes, and they're still not necessarily pinching pennies, but living paycheck to paycheck. So just living within your means with whatever you make, if you're doing what you love, hey, that's all that matters in your book.
Exactly. Well, we talked about kind of a story that changed you. Was there a good fun story that you've done in your career that hits you pretty good?
There's been lots of fun ones. So I always enjoy when I get to go out live and report. The most recent one I just did was with Salvation Army. WKBN is sponsoring their Red Kettle campaign, helping with kickoff because they are in need of donations this year with the pandemic. But whenever I can go out is really fun. So I had a little bit more of that when I was a reporter in West Virginia. Oh my gosh, we've done some fun ones. Have you heard of Bubble Ball?
Yeah, that's an interesting game.
Yeah, you get in like a bubble, like Bubble Boy, and you run around and play soccer. And it was so fun. I literally was just playing live on air with some 8th grade boys, and they just came over and like hit me, and I just fell flat on my face live on TV. Those are really fun, highlighting, local community businesses. We did that a lot. So I got to drink moonshine live on air in West Virginia at our sister station. That was really fun. Not too much.
How long did that last?
Well, our morning newscast was only 2 hours, and I knew I was a lightweight, so I was like, well, we're not gonna have very much of this. I'll tell you that.
Well, you enjoy your job. If someone wants to kind of get into the business, what advice would you give them?
Intern. Go somewhere and intern. Most TV stations offer that program right now. That might be on hold, but a lot of people just see us on air and they might think they want to do that. But there are so many other jobs in a newsroom that are just as important. There are producers who I always say are like the brains behind a show. They are writing, finding those stories. There's the assignment editor, which we talked about earlier, the photogs or cameramen. So many people who contribute to this newscast, and you might think you want to do one thing and get in there and realize there's a better fit for you. I would definitely recommend interning because it also gives you a better picture of what this job entails. A lot of people think, we just sit there and look pretty and don't put much work into it. No, like our reporters, some of them are out there working their own camera, shooting their own stories, editing their own stories, setting up interviews. And that can be hard because you're on a deadline. You don't have days to get this stuff done. No, you come into work at 8, 9, 10 in the morning, and you have to have it ready to go by 5 o'clock at night. So it's not always glamorous. It's a lot of hard work. So come in, intern, talk to people who are in those jobs, and see if you're willing to put in the work and everything it takes to do it.
And if you're looking for inspirational about a job, talk to Miss Spears right here.
Yes, I'm always happy to help. I had a lot of people help me get to where I am today. And I would love to do that for someone else. So,
well, normally I ask this question: you do a great job at what you do. If you weren't in the broadcasting business, what do you think you'd be doing?
I don't know if this counts. I would probably be doing print journalism. Is that too much of a cop out?
No.
Okay.
No, there's no. It just depends what you'd like to do.
I actually didn't want to be on TV. I wanted to be a print reporter, and I wanted to do investigative pieces like Bob Woodward and Carl Bernstein. I just couldn't land anything in college. All I could get was TV because I had such a video background, which was a little bit of a skill set not everyone has. So my internship at a TV station, which led to a job on TV, which then led to my first on-air gig. I was applying for print jobs and just didn't land anything that was of interest to me. So if I wasn't doing broadcast, I would probably be doing that. I would even love being a copy editor of books. I'm a huge bookworm, actually. This is next on my reading list, Sharp Objects by Gillian Flynn.
You should post your book list, a book every week for people to read.
So I've just been having some lately. All the Missing Girls, if you guys need any good ones. I like thrillers, psychological thrillers. All the Missing Girls was a good one, and The Guest List by Lucy Foley. That one was really good. So if you're interested. Yeah, I know thrillers not everybody's cup of tea, but I would really love to be like a copy editor of like a book of some sort.
I prefer the movies over the book.
Really? See, I have such a short attention span when it comes to TVs.
Oh, mine's the opposite.
I don't know what it is.
I
can be really in tune to like a good TV show, like drama. I don't know what it is with movies though. Unless it's, I'm not really diverse in my selection choice. It has to be psychological thrillers. I like things that make you think.
Hey, there's nothing wrong with that.
I'm boring.
No, not at all. Well, at least you picked the right glasses for this match.
Yeah, these are blue light glasses. I figured since we're going to be doing this with the computer. I do actually need prescription lenses. They are horrible. I have terrible, terrible eyesight.
I have a question, and there's always the rumor goes around that, and I don't know, you maybe can say it's true or not, but from the waist down, do people wear shorts, pajama pants,
No,
slippers?
I would say the exception is right now when people are working from home. I know Dan, when he was working from home, I was anchoring in studio, he would wear pajama pants. Sometimes I will say I get really cold in studio in the winter months. So like I'll bring up a blanket and I'll have that over me, or I'll wear my fuzzy moccasins. But for the most part, no. Shoes, maybe. For a while, I was wearing tennis shoes when you couldn't see our feet on air, but you can see them now in the new studio. So I usually wear my heels.
Yeah, back in the day, there was anchors would wear anything almost, shoes, sweatpants, gym shorts, but wear tights because this would be the only thing on TV.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, I'm usually in full work attire. Not always. Not always. Sometimes there's a slipper or two.
Next to your desk in the picture. Well, let me ask you this: if there was, I mean, as you move in your career, and we talked about what advice you can give someone to get into the news business. What advice do you give just to people in general with this pandemic going on, and what inspiration can you give them?
Be kind. Be kind. I know we all have different opinions on things, literally ranging from politics to the pandemic to whatever you want to argue about on social media. People love arguing on Facebook for some reason, but be kind. We all have different opinions on everything. That is what makes us human. That's what makes us have a brain and have a personality. But be respectful. Just because someone has a different opinion than you doesn't mean they are a terrible person. It doesn't mean they are wrong in everything they do. It doesn't mean you can't be friends with them. You need to learn to live with people who have different opinions and let that be okay. I think we are getting into this dangerous territory where people are becoming so polarized and finding the people who only agree with them and then getting so spread out onto opposite ends of the spectrum that there's no middle ground anymore. I think you got to have compassion, you got to have grace, you got to have patience, and you got to have respect. That's what you would want. Give that to other people. Be kind.
Treat as one as you would like to be treated.
Yes. Yes. Makes me so sad when I see people just attacking each other.
Yeah, it's not pretty lately, especially with the election.
No.
We all agree to disagree.
Right.
Well, Chelsea, I appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedule to come on tonight. Now, are you ready for my five hard-hitting questions?
Yes. Let me hear them. I'm nervous.
Oh, okay. And just so everyone's aware, they don't see these questions ahead of time. Everyone gets asked these questions. So the answer of your question can be anything with personal or professional. Either way, you can go either way. What is your best experience in life? What was your best experience?
The first thing that comes to mind, I'm just going to go with what first comes to mind.
That's fine.
Studying abroad in college, I went to London, England for a week and a half. It was a very short period, but I met some awesome people on that trip. It was before we were attached with cell phones to our hips. I literally didn't take my phone with me that entire time. And we were just with each other for a week and a half, exploring a different country altogether. Freshman in college. So fun.
Okay. Best memory.
Oh.
These are probably the harder questions than I asked you before.
The first thing that comes to mind is my nephew being born. I have a niece and a nephew, and my family's really close. And him being born was one of my favorite memories. I remember getting very emotional about that.
Okay. There's no wrong answer. That's what I tell everyone. There's no wrong answer. Best accomplishment.
I would say living on my own and moving to West Virginia when I knew no one straight out of college. I stuck it out. It was not easy. It was really, really hard, to be honest with you. Graduated fresh out of college, moved to Charleston, West Virginia, knowing no one for my first job. And it was hard. It was really, really hard. But I didn't quit. I didn't give up. I stuck it out, and I grew a lot as a person and as a reporter. And it led me to where I am today. I think about how different my life would look if I had quit and left early. I wouldn't have any of this. I just wouldn't be here today. And I think about how drastically different my life would be. So sticking it out when the going got tough and making it in West Virginia on my own.
Okay. It's true that the news business, especially the people, your colleagues, it's a big happy family.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
You it's funny because you're like a family in that you get frustrated with each other. Sometimes you get snippy with someone and you go back and apologize. I've had to do that. I've had to say, listen, I'm sorry. I was really stressed, and that does not excuse that I talked to you that way. And they'll be like, what are you talking about? I don't even remember. I'm like, well, you deserved an apology. I apologize. I'm sorry. But that's how you are with family, right? I mean, say you're sorry when you mess up. And
I think funny family are a little bit more stubborn.
Yeah, that's true too.
Especially if you're Italian. Who would be your role model? I know we talked about your professional role models that you kind of looked at, and but who would be, like, just in general, who has really shaped your life?
Oh, my mom and dad. I get emotional just thinking about them. Here we go with me crying all the time. But my mom and dad, I mean, just being so selfless their whole life just to give me what I have today.
Okay.
I can only hope
nothing wrong with that.
As they are. They're just selfless people.
Okay. And then the last one that you may have to think on this one. If there was one person you would want to meet, past or present, who would it be and why?
I don't know why this just came to my head, but Michael Strahan. I love him. Love him. I think because, I don't know if you can tell, I do have a lisp, and he does as well, and we're in similar professions. I just think he's so fun. I love watching him on the news, and I just think he's inspirational. So I would say that. That was my first thought. I'm sure I could think of someone else too that I would want to meet.
I've had people say, I've had individuals say a couple people.
Is that weird? Is that weird that I just said Michael Strahan?
No, I don't. You know what? I don't think it is. I think it's each person's different, and each person has their own thought process of it, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Who would yours be?
Who would mine be?
Yeah.
Well, mine are a little bit different because I have a variety of different background. Mine would be like, I'd want to sit down with President John F. Kennedy. I'd like to sit down with President Abraham Lincoln. I'd even go as far back because I'm a history guy. I like history.
Yeah.
So I want to go back.
Than mine, huh?
Huh?
Those are a little more substantial than mine, huh?
No, I mean, I would even like to sit down with I think those are the people that I think of first. But then if I were to start thinking about it, there would be other individuals that I'd really give thought to, because you want to really, like, sit down and pick their brain and just kind of see what they were thinking about back then, 50, 60, 100, 200 years ago. I mean, if you want to go as far back as you want to go 2,000 years. I mean, it just depends on what each person's different. So it just depends.
I just wanted to know your insight.
Hey, I have no problem sharing it. But Chelsea, I appreciate you taking time. Those are my 5 hard-hitting questions.
Woo!
I appreciate taking time from your busy schedule. I know you're should be sleeping because you'll be up in about 5 hours. And I thank you. And you're more than welcome on the show anytime.
I appreciate it. I'm glad I got to come on here and share a little bit more behind the scenes. Thanks for inviting me.
Oh, no problem. Thank you, everyone, for joining us. For any more interviews, podcasts, or extra information, please go to anthonyvspano.com. Please have a great night. Be safe and stay healthy. Good night, everyone.